Welcome back. This is Just in Our Minds, and this is my friend Felicia Marie. We'll get into what she does and how she got there, and thanks for listening. What would you say got you started for your path, your journey?
I would say the biggest thing that got me started was a lot of suffering.
A lot of suffering?
Yeah.
From an early age?
Yeah.
That usually develops the healing archetype. I guess the healer, the
Yes.
savior,
Yes. That's my archetype. That was spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
Yep.
It's most of us.
Yeah.
And then we're
You
always
too?
like, I'm always a half glass full,
Yes.
the glass half full.
Yes. The over optimism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, it's fine. It can leak. Or just leak it into your cup.
I'll take all of your problems and fix them for
Yeah,
you and help
yeah.
you with everything. Yes.
Are you on fire? No.
No.
Don't worry about me.
Yeah, like I remember moments where I've been in a hole, like deep in something, and I'm helping like 10 people.
Yeah, your eyes just hanging out. You're like, no, focus here.
Yeah.
Focus here. Focus around here. Don't worry about what's
Don't worry
happening
about
here.
what I have going
Yeah.
on. Like, let's talk about you.
Yeah. It's always then clients are, what are you doing? I'm doing the same things you are, kind of.
Yeah.
I had to get there.
I love this conversation. Oh, I was just having the same conversation earlier today.
Really?
So yeah, this is very aligned with
Divine timing.
with what I'm going through in my life right now.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting how even the more awareness you have around this, it doesn't really change your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have more awareness around it and you continue to help people and show up. Right?
100%. Yeah. 100%. And,
Yeah.
then we're the type of people that'll go home if we don't know something and try to figure it out.
Yes.
So other people don't have to.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
But like we can go back a little bit towards the beginning and just give us a little bit of a background of like
Right.
what created Felicia other
Right.
than your parents.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk about them too. Sounds like there could be some things there. As far
Yeah.
as whatever you want to be vulnerable about. So
Right,
Whatever you're called to today.
Yes, I hear you. So for me, I feel like it was the lack of parenting. It wasn't really my parents. It was the lack of having parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I've done my work, like doing hypnotherapy on myself and doing the healing work on myself, the more I've discovered that I have a lot of distorted memories and I have a lot of like self-deception going on that I've uncovered because I didn't have any way to like emotionally regulate and talk about how I feel, and I didn't have people to mirror from in my environment. So as I've gone back into not having parents, I've learned that I actually did have parents, and my perception of that is altered because I was so young and I didn't have this understanding of what was going on. So I had a lot of abandonment trauma in my childhood. My mom and dad got divorced when I was really young. It's like typical story for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I don't know anyone that hasn't had very similar stories as mine.
Were they physically not there, emotionally not there, or a combination of both? Like work, all that
Both.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much not there. My mom was there until she wasn't. And it was a very quick flip. Her and my dad got divorced. She got with an alcoholic who was very abusive, brought him into the home. And that's when I feel like I lost her. Mm-hmm. So that's when I went to through the first layer of abandonment. And then my dad moved out. Excuse me. My dad moved out, and then
It's just trauma coming up.
yeah, for real. No, for real. It is. It's very aligned with what I've been working through and processing this last month anyways. So divine timing. My dad like started other families and just abandoned us. And then he did it twice. And I have so much wounding around masculinity because of that. And not just like my perception of masculinity, my own masculinity. It's not just like an external, I have hard relationships with men. I have a hard relationship with masculinity within myself first, and then it shows up with men. That's how I see it. So I don't have any, I haven't had any real visuals of what a good father is, or like what a dad is for me, but even for my kids. So I ended up marrying my dad, because they say that, like, you marry your mom, you marry your dad, right? I married my stepdad and my dad in one person, which is extremely toxic on the highest level. So it started in childhood. I was abandoned. I got into drugs and alcohol at a very young age. I had like my first cigarette when I was 7 or 8. When I was getting baptized, I remember I was getting baptized and me and my brother were like around the corner smoking a cigarette. Which is so crazy to me to think about because I have kids and I would like
it's the paradigm of the fire and water.
Yes, yeah. So crazy.
Well, it's interesting too, like just to touch on that. Have you ever looked into like some of the native cultures and tobacco ceremonies?
Mm-hmm.
And I always just wonder if there's something there that their spirit has wrapped around that they don't realize they're doing. It's like protecting their aura.
Yeah.
You know?
I've gone down a rabbit hole with that and I want to segue into it for a second.
Yeah.
I feel like because our lineage travels in our DNA and it's in our bodies right now. It's not in the past. We think it's in the past, but it's here. I have awareness around a lot of teenagers that are lost and struggling and disassociated. In ancient cultures and civilizations, they had a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any rites of passage for maturity, for our hormonal shifts that happen when we're teenagers. We don't have a rite of passage for when young girls have their first periods and go into their cycles. There's no rite of passage for men when they start to become more primal and want to be more intimate and have sex with people. It's all just shame and guilt and negativity and
Google searches.
Yeah, Google searches and really dark things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when I started reaching into substances and going on that path.
Yeah, it's when you lose. I always say it's when you lose recess. It's from elementary school to middle school, and that's when your hormones kick in, and that's when you're, like early on, you're told to stand up and talk, and then once you go into like standard schooling, especially here in America, they tell you to shut up and sit down, and then you get recess, you get to hang out with your friends, you get to party, all that fun stuff. And then once you get to middle school, that's when anxiety starts creeping in. Because you have these hormones, you have to sit down the whole time. And that's when school gets more serious and everything. And I think that's where the unfolding of that happens. There's actually a book I always tell people to look into. It's called Iron John. It's from Robert Bly. You know that book?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's good. It talks about the golden ball and male initiation from childhood and how it's missing. And Robert Bly is a psychologist, and basically he talks about this 1890s story, Iron John. And Iron John is this wild man that you find in the river or in this pond. And basically this boy helps him unleash him. And then he talks about what he thinks that is and the dynamics between the lack of male initiation. So that inspired me to read a couple other books. And that's why like one of my nephews is 10. So now I'm going to get him to be able to, I'm going to find like, we're going to go camping. We're going to do these things. Like you have to succeed in these things with us.
Yes.
So he feels, adequate.
Yeah.
Like he's like,
So,
I did this with my uncle last summer, like whatever, so he feels like we check those boxes, but it's also navigating it towards not like outside of the elements of him as an individual.
Right.
So, but yeah, to go back to and I think it has to somewhere to go from elementary school to middle school, whether they're usually parents are at work or they're checked out.
Yep.
And I see that a lot.
I see that a lot.
I will say, luckily for me, I've been around a lot of good parents. So I have other people that I call like, not that my parents are bad. They learned at the best of their abilities. They came from a lot of trauma. My dad came off the streets from 16 and he owns his own house and things like that. So he went from being, partaking in the dark arts on the streets to being able to fine tune his life. And actually now they have a farm in Arkansas, but the same thing, I would say that a majority of us know what not to be.
Yes.
The people that can actually get out of the funk, break the childhood trauma and get through those cycles.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like that's probably the biggest issue that we have and disconnect in our society is that initiation from
100%.
And there's this piece in psychology, they talk about the 9-year change. And this is part of my work being a hypnotherapist. When you hit the age of 8 to 9, you come from subconscious to conscious, which means you're coming from a theta brainwave state into a brainwave state that helps you grow the prefrontal lobe, which is what allows you to make decisions and to problem solve. So until you're 9, you're not even developed to make decisions for yourself. You heavily rely on guidance. And so like for me as a child, I didn't have the guidance. There wasn't guidance. So I didn't get that in my development, right?
Yeah.
And then I can connect that through my whole entire life.
And I feel like I would get the opposite if I asked too many questions. I would get yelled at, not just from my parents, from my brothers, because my oldest brother's older than my stepdad.
Right.
My mom's a bit of a cougar. He was 22 and my mom was 41.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love the cougars.
Yeah, she did. And they're still together, so it works. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I get where that comes from. So going back.
Right.
So you I'm guessing you didn't feel safe.
Nope.
You didn't have somebody there. Your prefrontal lobe wasn't developing at age 9 or 10. Then I'm guessing that's when the childhood trauma starts developing. Social cues, things like that could be a little different. You feel out of place, and especially in public schooling.
Oh yeah. I could not go to school. I slept as much as I could, did as many drugs as I could, started drinking, being promiscuous, doing all the things. I mean, I was like 13 years old going to huge keg parties, like out in Tooele and Grantsville with my sister all the time. Like, I just remember partying all the time. I was throwing parties at my house, and like it was just essentially, looking back, it was normal for me. That's all that I knew was alcohol and drugs. And, my mom drank and my stepdad was an alcoholic. So I just became a part of that environment and didn't realize it until I got taken from my family. So then I had more abandonment, because it was not only that I was like abandoned by them. Once I got into the state's custody, that's when I started to realize, like, oh, I'm not even wanted. That's the problem, is like, they just don't want me. And that was, obviously I have a ton of emotion around that.
Now, was that foster? Did you start going into foster homes, things like that?
Yeah. So I went into, it was so crazy. I was just talking to my mom about this last week. Like, we've been processing a lot of what I went through in my teenage years, because I've been in those years in my psyche. And so I was like, hey, like, why didn't you want me? Like, threw that question at her out of the blue. And I was like, I just feel like I just wasn't wanted by either of you guys. And she's like, that's not what happened. Like, you were messing up and you got into state's custody, and we didn't really have an option, is how they presented it to my mom. And I was like, I think that's your cop-out. Like, I think that's just what you're saying, because my mom was so deep in her own stuff,
100%,
in her own shit, that she didn't even remember what happened to me.
Accountability.
No,
they're
no
in that because they don't have awareness. That's the whole problem there. I know a lot of family members that are like that too. They'd blame me and everybody else, and I was like, I'm 11.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what's going on. Like,
yes. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not even responsible for what's going on with me in those years, right? So when I got locked up in detention by my judge, because I had started doing ecstasy, like I fell into the E train as a teenager. I overdosed 3 times. Like, I'm lucky to even be alive. I was essentially looking back, not wanting to live, obviously, because I was pushing myself to that point constantly. My mom just reminded me of how they found me, like, passed out in someone's front yard at some point. I didn't even remember that. She was like, do you remember that? And I was like, no.
Compartmentalization,
I do not remember that.
That's one of those big things, is part of those like trauma responses, is you don't remember the hard stuff. Like, for me recently, like ketamine, things like that, there's times where I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And you're not okay.
Yes.
You're not okay.
Yeah, I was not okay. So I got locked up, went to detention for 3 months. I went to the wilderness program for 3 months.
They have one of those out here too?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Coolest thing I've ever done. Like, that program, I truly believe saved my life.
Yeah. Hero's journey. You started developing these hard skill sets.
Yes. And I thrived. I realized that I thrived in the consistency. I knew I was going to have food. Because we went without food all the time. I have so many like relatable traumas with food and my own health and my body, my relationship with it, because I went so much without food as a child and in my teenage years.
How was it from the beginning? Like, what were your thoughts and feelings that you can remember, like when you started into the wilderness program, from the beginning until the end?
When I first started, it was super scary, and I was super introverted and like kept to myself, and I didn't really like talk to anybody. I was like that.
Were you already doing, was that already when you were doing dopamine like driven drugs or substances?
Yeah, it was soon after. Yeah, it was soon after I was, chasing, feeling something. So for sure. But yeah, I very quickly became a leader. I realized, like, in that environment, I I loved learning, and I recognized that about myself. But to me, looking back, it was the grounding experience of it all, like getting back into nature, getting away from all of the noise, getting away from the drugs, getting away from everybody, including my environment, right? Because that's a part of it. Getting out of my parents' home is what really shaped me in discovering who I was. So that was my big turning point of sobriety for the rest of my life, was then. I won't say that I haven't dabbled since then, and like I was completely perfect after that, after I got released and went back into, society and into my environment. But I very quickly felt grounded, was super happy, healthy. I can specifically remember feeling like that was the happiest time of my life. Mm-hmm. Like I can go back into that memory and not remember anything else and be completely happy with it because I felt so grounded and so nurtured by nature. Right.
What are some of the skills you'd say you developed through that program?
Resilience. Oh yeah. That is my core identity, I would say. And I get that told to me all the time. Like my ability to be resilient to things is insane, which I do think kind of sucks sometimes because I think I'll put myself in some bad situations because I can come out of it so easy. But my ability to come out of things is at the highest level, I feel, because of that.
No, that's amazing. And I that's one of the things moving to Utah that I thought was really cool to see is like, even with whatever people think of the LDS culture, the Mormons, is like knowing that when they turn 18 or 19, 20, whatever that age is, that they're going to go 17 for some, is they get that hero's journey. That's what actually brought me out here. And so for you to be able to start that, how old were you?
I was 15.
15.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect time.
Yeah, perfect time.
Yeah.
Talk about a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is I think we initiate it ourselves. Like it's genetically in us. It's a primal thing that we do. We just not had the right pathway for us to show up in that. No teenagers have that. So they just find it. Like I truly believe that our identities and our trauma is what creates environments for us to heal in.
100%.
So I did that. I created that, and getting taken out of my family and getting locked up and being put into those programs, I do take accountability for that and know that I am like the co-creator of my experience. And I can see why I put that into my path looking back. That's the only thing that got me through the rest of the stuff that I went through in my life. Cause I had some really worse trauma than my childhood events after this. So this was crappy to say. I've been in trauma since I was 3 years old. It was a very consistent part of my life. This was a pillar of building perseverance and resiliency in that program to help me make it through what I was about to face.
Have you ever heard of soul contracts? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I always remind myself is like, well, you signed up for this life, so somebody else didn't have to. Like you read the fine print and you developed the skills necessary to be able to go through this, regardless of how hard those trials and tribulations are.
Right. And I love that perspective. I love to look at both aspects of that perspective of like, I think sometimes I'll get stuck in that and maybe justify some things in my life because 100%. I'm like, oh, well, this is a soul contract. At some point on my healing path, I had to learn that I was more committed to suffering than I was to moving out of it because 100%. I had experienced so much of it. And that's what I'm breaking through right now in my life is closing the door to suffering and opening the door to living. Right?
100%.
And not being in that cycle and that pattern of healing trauma and persevering and right. So like you get that hero's journey, not so that you can live in it, so that you can actually get out of everything and live.
Yep.
Instead of survive.
Yep, exactly. Once you get stuck, so we're going back to like what part of your brain is developed, because then over time you can always start activating different parts of your brain, whether it's, caffeine in the morning, this, that, the other, and then you're always in fight or flight, being dehydrated and having problems with your soul.
Yeah, that's everybody.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Like the majority
of people, except for like top 5%. So there's a few people out there that are living a genuine contract that they've created for themselves, which hopefully more people get there. So we'll see. I think with everything out there, I feel like more and more people, because I had somebody tell me a long time ago, he was a shaman. He said that we're the last generation of old souls and the new souls are coming to the earth right now. So
I can see that.
That was, 10 years, 2017, so almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, I can see
that.
Is
that Human Garage when I used to work there?
Yeah. I can totally see that with people.
So after this wilderness camp, what kind of trials and tribulations did you go through? Whatever you're comfortable with talking about, and then what lessons did you learn in the process to be able to create the person that's in here today?
Right. So I graduated, got adopted by my aunt and uncle, which was a saving grace because I felt like I was in an environment that I could heal, became a straight A student, and then met my ex-husband and got pregnant at the age of 17. Okay. So I was pregnant in high school. That was hard. Became a mom really early and just repeated the cycle. And I repeated the cycle for a while. My ex-husband was very abusive. I had to fight for my life to get out of that marriage. It took me 10 years to leave. We had 4 kids together. I left and had nothing. I went through being homeless probably 4 or 5 times in that process with 4 kids. And then I moved to Arizona, and this is like a big part of my journey that I don't share with a lot of people. And I don't even know if I told you about this, but I went through a really big trauma, about 11 years ago. And that was a huge contract that I had that I'm still working on healing, just to be authentic and honest. It's a very hard contract to even talk about, but it's a part of my journey, and it 100% has forged me into being the woman that I am today. So I like to focus on that when I share about what I've been through, because I recognize that everything after that was the byproduct of that trauma. Like, I don't even go into what happened after that, because it just, to me, is this big, deep hole that I was in for 10 years that I'm just coming out of. So I was in Arizona, and I was LDS at the time, going to church. My ex-husband was. I wasn't raised that way, but he was, and I was more than happy to be a part of it, so I did. Had 4 young kids, raising my kids, really good mom, huge person in my community. I showed up at school. I showed up in their sports. I did CrossFit. I trained with high-level athletes. I was on the path of becoming a trainer myself and stepping into that field with health and wellness. And I was driving, and I ended up being at a stop sign, and I hit a pedestrian with my kids in the car. I was taking my daughter to gymnastics. I was fully stopped at the stop sign. It was a simple mistake of not looking left. So it was an older man, and he was walking with a cane. He was super old, in his 80s. He was looking down and not looking, and I wasn't looking. So we both weren't looking at the same time, which is what created the mistakes on both ends. But regardless, I just didn't look left, and I started to go and hit him with the front of my car. Very traumatizing experience. I was on that corner for 9 hours. This is a small town, so everybody knows. Everybody's driving by. Sat there for about 8 hours. Found out he didn't make it. Yeah. And that's the gist of it. That's the hard point. So yeah, that experience of, I just need to give myself a minute.
No, you're okay.
I really struggle with it, obviously. Like, why wouldn't I, right? I'm human. But essentially what happened because of that is I died with him, right? And I'm just coming out of it this last year. So what was really difficult about this whole situation is I'm a very accountable person. I always have been my whole life. I've always had extreme ownership of myself. I've never been a victim. I've never blamed people. And even in this moment, I took full accountability, was completely honest that I didn't look to the left, which was very negligent of me. I was like, do whatever you need to do. But that's part of the trauma from my childhood is like, don't worry about me. It's all about him. Didn't even care about what I went through in that moment. And so I just buried that for 10 years. My own experience, and I did no therapy, no EMDR. I had no family support, right? Because I didn't have any family. So I'm in another state. Me and my husband at the time were not together. We had just ended our relationship. So I was very alone, which was the reoccurring theme of my life, right? So we can bring in contracts at that point, talk about a contract, but it just validated even more that I don't deserve to be here. And I'm not a good person. And that I should just, I remember begging God to take me. Like, I was just like, please take me with him, because I knew I couldn't live with it. I just knew myself. And it didn't make sense, right? These contracts are so hard because you try to make sense of it and you can't. So this is the one trauma of my life that I just can't really make sense of. I can make sense of all the other stuff because it's like, oh, my parents didn't heal and they did the best that they could. And, oh, I attracted my father, so I know I went through this. But this specific thing, to be a young mom, an incredible mom, by the way, like the way that I mother and parent my kids, I don't really know many parents that are on my level to this day. Even after this, I've still been the best mom ever. But just knowing that I'm that way and how big my heart is and how much I love people to be a part of something like this, I've not been able to reconcile that within my soul. And so that just validated that I wasn't enough. I didn't deserve to be here. And so what I did because of this is I've punished myself for 10 years. I pushed my kids away. I've pushed everybody away because I didn't feel good enough to have anyone in my life because of this accident. And I recognize it was an accident, right? Like, I have all the awareness. I have all the conversations with people, and they're like, it's okay. Like, it was an accident. You need to forgive yourself. So easy for everybody to say when they haven't experienced, like, they don't have the knowing in their system of what it feels like to make a mistake that costs somebody a life. That is like so difficult to live with when you're a really good person. I feel like people that aren't genuinely loving and caring, maybe they can just move forward pretty quickly and they're like, it is what it is. Maybe that's just my perspective. But for me, because I'm such a like genuinely loving, kind human being, to go through that's just something that really killed me. Like I remember literally my soul dying on the corner that day with him. I like dropped to the ground. I prayed and begged for his life to be saved and for me to go, which is really insane because I have 4 young kids that I'm raising and I am a good person. I have a whole life ahead of me. But that's been the reoccurring theme in my life is like, everybody else is more important than me. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough, right? My childhood showed me that. My teenage years showed me that. My marriage showed me that. But essentially, I've created it, right? The awareness and the accountability is understanding that the traumas that I've experienced have created such a build in my mind, a frame to validate that. So I would just keep attracting experience after experience to validate that I wasn't good enough, right? So that's the big shifting moment of my life, and it went on for about 10 years. It's been 11 years now since that happened, and I'm just barely coming out of it. I'm just barely talking about it with people. Like, if you're close with me, you know what I went through, but I would never tell you, Justin. I would never sit down and be like, hey, this is something that I went through, because I had so much like just shame and embarrassment around it. And I don't want to be judged, which I get it. Like, we're all going to be judged, and I judge. It is what it is. But when I went through that experience, I don't know if you've ever experienced feeling like you've been hung on a cross before, but that's a reference that I use because when I went through this, that's what happened.
I get it.
Yeah, you get
crown
it.
Of thorns to the 2 stakes.
You get it.
I get it.
The whole town, man, I got hate everywhere I went. I went from being a very involved mom in my community to being a murderer, someone that killed somebody. People would literally, when I'd walk into a room, they would move away from me. They'd get up and move away from me. They'd pull their kids away from my kids. Like, I felt the hit of it, and I didn't have anybody there. I had no support.
Yeah.
Not even from my husband at the time.
Ugh.
So it was, I went through that feeling of being hung on the cross, being judged by everybody.
But it's so weird because that's like one of the deepest forms of enlightenment is that loneliness that you're supposed to go through for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, I went through it.
I don't know if you looked into who he was or anything like that, but you could have answered his prayers. Maybe he was going through cancer. He had some things going on.
Yeah, he was. He actually, like, they found out 3 days, which is why I had 15 years I had a felony over my head for a year, going to prison for 15 years is what I had over my head from that. And I do feel blessed, and I do feel like I've been protected and looked out for in the situation. And I felt like I was given a second chance by not going on that path. And I obviously am going to do something with that, because I feel like that's the whole point of a contract. The whole point of this experience is there's something that I'm going to do with it. Right.
Well, even the fact of you being able to overcome it in front of your kids, that's something that alone,
Yeah.
So sorry, you were gonna talk about. I think you were gonna say something about him.
Yeah. So we found out that 3 days prior he had a heart attack, and he was put on bed rest and was told not to leave anywhere. So he was clearly a stubborn man, right? And I'm not gonna say his name just out of respect for the family, but he was a little stubborn. He wasn't supposed to be out. He was not supposed to be going anywhere because he had just had a heart attack. He was like, you need to stay in bed. And he went for a walk. And so I've had a lot of spiritual experiences with him. I've done a lot of psychedelic journeys. He's been a part of my life since. I have a lot of awareness around the orchestration of how everything happened. When I tell people the story, it's pretty insane how everything happened afterwards. Just things that you can't question.
Yeah. And I'm like 80 years old. If he's upwards, it's a pretty long life.
He was like mid 80s.
Yeah. Of course, a life is a life, but I'm like.
Yeah. He definitely lived his life.
And he had a heart attack, and, that's not things. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen, and it's not even for us to understand sometimes. You know, it's just, it is what it is for the universal law of things that need to happen.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so that was a turning point, and I've spent the last 7 years healing that, because everything that happened after that was me punishing myself.
I can only imagine. I accidentally hit a dog one time.
Oh yeah.
The dog ran out in front of me, and I was like, ran over the center, and the back legs didn't work, and it just kept running around in circles. And I was like,
that is so hard. I hit my first.
I was like 18 or 19. And I'm like, the whole family ran out, and they were like, "No, Gypsy," or whatever the name was. And I'm like,
you're like, oh man,
oh no,
it's a hard place to be in.
Yeah, I'm like, the family seen what happened. They were like,
yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
I'm like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Do you want me to stay? And they're like, no, that wasn't.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard to talk about still, but it's just because I have a lot of emotion that I didn't deal with. I didn't face it because I didn't know how, So I've spent a lot of time diving into that. I've done a lot of journeys, a lot of psychedelics. Like I took that intention to sit with ayahuasca and wasn't even able to get into it because it was so heavy. I like skirted around that one and went into every other trauma that I had experienced and just completely missed that one. And then realized over the last couple of months that that's what has been opened up is the biggest experience that I had, which was that. So lessons learned from this, and what I teach people and why I became a hypnotherapist and a high performance coach and a Reiki master and working on the body, mind, and spirit is presence. How important presence is. If I had been more present in that moment as a mom and been able to regulate myself and to be able to move through the things that I was moving through that I didn't know how, that would have been avoided, right? It's lack of presence that causes us to miss things and to not pay attention. And it shows up with how we parent our kids. It shows up with our clients when we're working with them. It shows up with our relationships, like big time in relationships. And so now I feel like I have the gift of presence. And everybody that I work with, everybody that I meet, everybody that I sit with instantly loves me and trusts me and connects with me on a really deep level. It's not like I have to do a lot of work for that to happen. And the reason why is because this pain that I felt with this has been such a driving force for me to become the most present version of myself in all times. Not just when I want to be, not just when I need to be, but really cultivating that within myself and in my system. So that's how you turn your trauma into a treasure and a gift, is you take those really hard things that happen to you and you process it and you feel it and you figure out what the lesson is with it. And then you integrate that into your life and share it with people. And that's what I do. And that's all that I do. I will say that I have discovered that what was driving me prior to the last couple months was the pain, was the guilt. And I've spent the last 7 years saving lives to make up for the life that I feel like I took. Mm-hmm. And I've become aware of that since doing ayahuasca, and I'm working on forgiving myself so that it's not coming from a place of, I need to make up for something. I need to make up for my mistakes, right? Because that's just more punishment.
Honestly, that's 11 years. Yeah. Most of your cells are gone.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even that person anymore.
I know, it's
I have
so
to
true.
remind myself of that kind of stuff. I used to intentionally hurt people.
Right.
I used to get paid to intentionally hurt people.
Right.
Like, it was a thing. But regardless if they were bad people or not, like, it was a thing. And so for my whole life, even if it was unintentionally, intentionally, it's a hard thing to let go of.
Yeah.
On any level.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah. So I've just had to ask myself recently, like, how many more people do I need to save? Like, when is it going to be enough? It's never going to be enough. It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's 100% a trap.
Save yourself.
Yeah. It's now me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what did I need in that moment that I didn't get? I need community. Mm-hmm. I need to feel supported. I need to feel seen and heard and loved. Mm-hmm. That's the baseline of healing. So that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm really leaning into.
Now, when you look left, you see yourself. That's why you should see yourself walking across that street, because otherwise you're going to keep doing it, and it's going to keep happening to you.
Yes.
Now you're on both sides of it. You're behind the steering wheel, and you're the one walking across the street. So you got to be careful of that.
Exactly. Yep. So I've done anything you can think of when it comes to healing. I've gone into all of it. There's really nothing that I haven't done. I haven't done EMDR, but I think psychedelics really support me and doing work on myself. And I feel better about that. Like, that's just my way of healing and my process of it, is having something support me, just like creating new pathways, creating new stories, and just dissolving these old ones that aren't supporting me and my growth. So, but I wouldn't say that's what led me to becoming a hypnotherapist. What led me to becoming a hypnotherapist is I got sick and tired of my shit. Like, I got sick and tired of being in the loops. Mm-hmm. Once I became aware of the loops, I'm like, well, why am I still doing this? I don't need to continue to be this way. I don't need to be my past. I don't need to be my parents. I don't need to be what happened to me. I needed to discover who I was outside of all the trauma. Because I don't know if you feel this way, but when you go through a lot of trauma, you almost become that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then you actually have to let go of all of that even and figure out who you were before all of it happened. And that's where I am. It's like, who am I without any of this? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, for me too, I kind of like, not even like who I was, because it's like who I am now. Like, you can have the essence of who you are. And that's kind of giving that hug to that 4-year-old, but it's like, who have I evolved to?
Yeah.
Because then no matter what, it's like, who was I? Then you have this like long reach into the past regardless. And it's okay to hold that person's hand, but you got to pull them to where you are rather than you going back to find them.
Yeah.
And that's something for me that I've had to, like, I'm not the person I used to be. I don't have to be, regardless of the resentment and things I have daily. Liz, there's been plenty of mornings when I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I woke up again. And it's wild.
Yeah.
You live a blessed life. We live blessed lives, and it's hard to see sometimes. And I think just the overbearing weight of the idea of like, so many people like appreciate me and this thing, and so it's hard not to like push those to want to push those clouds away and smile for people, Mm-hmm. So it's like you have this overbearing weight of like your internal dialogue, and then on the outside, you live a blessed life, but for some reason you can't feel it or see it, and I think that's really hard.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of that. I was just talking about that, like being able to receive the good that you've created, right, and the success that you've created, and getting used to that because you're so used to the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've ruined relationships and things because of that, because I didn't understand how to love people, and when the people would love me a certain way, it freaked me out.
Yep.
Like,
I feel you on that one.
Yeah, so
I feel like I'm in the middle of that now.
So for me, that was a big thing, and nowadays I don't even really date because I just want to work on myself, because I've had some dark things that recirculate, and I'm on the tail end of a longer cycle. Luckily, my cycles are getting wider and wider, like that orbit's getting less and less likely to connect nowadays. But yeah, so for me, it's like, people are like, oh, why don't you date? Like, oh, like this and another. I'll like dabble in dating apps and things like that. But it's just like, why? Then you're just going to only attract that person that's at the same level of trauma as you right now, unless you're happy with the version of you that's sitting here, which you should be. But
I get what you're saying.
So that's for me. I'm like, I'll try to work through a little bit more of this, you know. But then again, maybe that's trauma, because then I don't want to expect people to accept me for who I am, or I think I'm going to be this thing because of my past. You know?
I think I'm going to lean more into that one for you, in my opinion. But I think it's easy to be in this persona that's very heavily pushed in social media to be perfect and healed and then attract. But what I've learned is I actually heal more in relationship than I do outside of it. I heal more in this conversation with you than like sitting in my room talking to myself.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And that's what relationships are supposed to be an activator of. If you're going to be willing to do that, because that is hard. It's intense. And a lot of people do want it to be the fairy tale. That is our programming. Our conditioning is like the woman's going to be saved and the man's going to be Prince Charming. Bullshit. It's not like that at all. Actually, women don't want to be saved. They want to be held.
Princesses want to be saved.
Princesses want to be saved.
Queens don't.
Queens don't. No, Queens want to be next to you. Yeah. They don't want to be above you or below you. Yeah. They want to be side by side.
I will say some of them want to break. You know, like you said, they want to be held. They don't mind you make a dinner type of deal. You know, like they want to be involved. But because that's the difference. I think there's a lot of women nowadays that I've seen that want to be treated like a princess, but they don't have the attributes to be a queen. And so you're always just going to babysit. And some men want that. They want to be able to manipulate women, and they want to be able to handle this narcissistic spell they create. And then they wonder why things fall apart, and they end up having 3 babies mamas with an endless amount of child support. And I'm like, that was your spell, sir. You should have put your magic stick away a little sooner.
Yeah, I'm like, you're describing
you gave
my
her a little
ex-husband.
too much abracadabra. And that's a lot of my female, female friends, like they all have that, and they're all powerful women, but unfortunately they're attracted to a narcissist because
they don't know what they're good. They don't know they're good enough for anything else, right?
Or they are high level and they have to meet somebody at high level, and like 75% of high level men are very egoic, and they're not, you know, and that unfortunately that's maybe 70, we'll say 70, but that's just red line all day, you know, 1,000 milligrams of let's go and caffeine, and they're off to the next, they don't come home to see the kids. Like some of them are good dads.
And they're not present.
I would say hopefully 30%, because I know some really good dads too.
I think you're closer to maybe 60. I think you dropped it way down. You're giving way too much credit. Where it's not due. I love this conversation because we've talked about some of this before in the past, but I have 100% experience. I am a high performing woman. I am a queen. I am high value. I know what I've done. I know the work that I've done. I have the ability to receive. I have a ton of receptivity. I know how to soften, and I will do that in the right environment. I've read every book. I've worked with every coach. I've done a lot of that work. And what I've recognized in all of that is that regardless of the work that I've done, I have to actually attract that and not actually attract what I have in the past to even see that integrated in my life. And that's where a lot of people, they're not willing to go there. Like if you're not willing to date and you're not willing to meet people, you're never going to get there. Because it's a numbers game.
And that's for me, I navigated like where I'm meeting people. Like I'm probably going to have to meet them at the gym. Or like some sort of fun event like dancing, things like that don't necessarily have alcohol and all these other things involved. Because I can meet people at these networking events or here and there. But I'm such a high level athlete when it comes to the way I work out that it's too intimidating, or the way I eat's too intimidating for most people. Like I can eat the same thing all the time and it's weird for people. So for me, it's like I've niched myself down to such a small group of women, which is okay.
That's fine.
But I even just meeting a lot of women, I'm like, it wouldn't work. And then my friend's like, how did you get that from the first time? I was like, I've seen this, 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 and this. And then we'll hang out with them as like a group for a couple months. And my friend was like, how do you notice these things? And I was like, it's probably a combination of trauma and you know, but sometimes
like you and I are so similar in this 100%.
Because I see this, and that's not going to work. And then for me, one of my last ex was such a phenomenal individual that it's hard, and I try not to compare, but she checked every box, you know. So I was like,
so you can't downgrade
all the way down to the toe shoes.
You can't downgrade, you can't settle, because you have a taste of like what you really want and what you really need.
Like lately, I did date this other girl for a little while, and I think we would have checked all the boxes, but she was like heavily LDS, and she had a lot of shame from that which awesome.
Yeah.
I just wish she could have seen how awesome she was.
Right.
You know, she felt like a lemon. Her husband was a lemon. Like she didn't enjoy, you know, intercourse and all these things. So like, but anyways, I see there, I do attract high level women as well.
Right. Right.
And it's great, but there's a lot of boxes that aren't checked, you know, and I'm like, oh, and it's not, it could be mutual, but it's more so that like, I know what I'm going to be as an individual. And so for me, that like nutrition and the breath work and all the fun stuff that make me who I am, like they don't have to be an eye level with me, but it has to be.
You have to be compatible.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't willing to look at compatibility, and they get that connection and then they confuse the connection for we're actually good for each other. A lot of people don't ask the questions right away. They don't do the vetting. They don't get clear on what they want. And I think it is because you've done so much work on who you are. Like you said, you're going to look for that mirror to match that level.
But also it's interesting because some of the girls that are of that level they want to be competition, and I don't want that either.
Right.
Because they're going to constantly try to compete with me.
So you're talking about polarity.
And and unfortunately, in most aspects, they're going to be stuck in the shadow there, and I could see it gets to them, and it's a thing. Because even some of the girls I've hung out with in the past year were very high level athletes, but then they can't lift as much or whatever that is, and that's weird to them. Because they have the older brother dynamic type of deal, and I was like,
that shifts the polarity in the relationship.
The poking at each other and that too. I'm like, I don't know if that's safe.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think that's healthy.
I've never seen it work out. Like that's not like when it's a competition. We can be competitive, but like
individually.
Yeah, they're a little too masculine, which I don't mind. But some of the times I'm like, I'm just a different. It's a different thing. Like
you're like, I'm going to win every time.
Probably
at this lift because I'm a man and I have more testosterone and way more muscle than you.
But I mean, some of those girls, like they run up a mountain, I'm not keeping up with them. Like, you know, like for fun. Like, I run up Timpanogos or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, you're definitely going to win at that.
Yeah.
And then they would get frustrated if I pull off the gas pedal and act like I didn't. I'm like, oh, no, you got me. I just got tired. And they're like, no, you know. And so that was an interesting thing. So that
is that masculine energy that you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's not going to work with you.
Yeah.
Because you have a high level of testosterone.
Yeah, and you know, like in most men, honestly, like it's a struggle for a lot of people to keep up too in general. So not to toot my own horn, but it happens. Like I have to be in high level.
You should toot your own horn.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
You've done the work.
But yeah, so for me, I noticed that I'm like, oh, there's a level of this where it's like 75% of that, and then we're different. Because if we're too similar too, then it's not going to work. Because I had to set boundaries with someone. Like I'm like, hey, you're literally projecting at me. Like, I mean, maybe this works with your brother, your ex-boyfriends and stuff like that, but I don't appreciate that. Like the only reason you're projecting and poking at me is because of the fact that you feel inadequate.
Yep.
And
you have an insecurity.
You think it's flirting, whatever that is, and it's just past. I get it. I understand it, but I'm not going to tolerate it for very long.
Right, which is good.
Right? Yeah.
You should have that
so
boundary.
It's right off the get-go, and I'm like, hey, I get it, but I used to be a bully, and I don't want to be around bullies.
Yeah.
Anybody that treats servers bad, they talk down on people, like, I just don't want to be circled around that. I get it every once in a while, making a joke about somebody's, sandals with socks or something. Go for it, whatever. It's funny, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and if it's a constant thing where it makes you feel better, makes the rest of the room feel bad, then that's just you building up, a balloon or whatever with a hole in it, and it's going to deflate, and it's not healthy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been diving into polarity and those dynamics for a while. I actually coach a whole group of women that I'm coaching on polarity. Yeah. And I've struggled with masculinity within myself. Like I've gotten into hyper independence and overdrive and all of those things before. And I'm learning how to recalibrate my polarity within myself to know when I can soften and when I need to be in the feminine energy and when I need to get into my masculine. So I've dealt with that on the other side as a woman getting with men. But what I've learned from this is you have to know yourself individually and what you need. And you have to be really crystal clear on that. And you have to be willing to not move that for the sake of companionship, for the sake of having somebody in front of you. Because that's you abandoning yourself. That's you sabotaging yourself just to have this like short-term feeling that's not going to last long-term.
I have this weird thing too, because it's not that I necessarily don't want to date. I'd rather be alone than waste my time.
Yes.
Which is weird.
So I agree with you, and that's where I am. That's how I feel, and I've said that verbatim.
Hop, and then they're just keep trying out different relationships, and I'm like...
And I've done that too, actually. I've dated around, and I'm just like, the more I date, the more I learn what I like, what I don't like. I've been able to discover a lot of that in dating, so it's helped me do that. Where I'm at now is realizing that I'm very similar to you. Like I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I've attracted some people that have come to me that have said they're this way. And then about a month in, they show otherwise. And I'm like, hey, you're not going to be able to hold a mask with me for very long because I see through people. Like I see people's souls. I see their traumas. I see their triggers. Because of my trauma, I have that gift of discernment, and I am in tune with myself as a woman. I can see into the future, all of those things. So what happens with me is like a month in is they start to not show up the same way they did in the first month. And I'm like, okay, so this is who you really are. You present this way in the first month, and we all do this on some level, I feel. You present this way, and then it shifts, and that's when I'm like, this is not a match.
It goes into the thing I seen. Shout out to Stephanie. I'll send this to her. She posted something on her story that said, women wear makeup because men are visual.
Yes.
You know, so they see. Yep. And men lie because women listen.
Yes. Yep. So that's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens. So I've had to do the work on myself to come authentically from the beginning, and I am good at that. I don't change and waver who I am for anybody. And I used to shrink myself a lot as a woman because men were insecure and felt intimidated by me because I'm smart.
Yeah, you got to water yourself down.
Because I'm in tune. Yeah. So I'd have to like shrink myself and make myself smaller because of their insecurities. Yeah. And I'm unwilling to do that. Yeah,
that was something that I really appreciated women let me know. They were like, oh, I could just... Yeah. You're not insecure about this stuff, are you? I was like, no. Yeah. Like I think it's awesome. It's attractive. Yeah. It gives me something to work on, you know. And I'm not trying to be you. Like some of them are nurse practitioners, these different things, you know, high level, 6-figure earner, blah blah blah, you know, whatever they're doing. And I'm like, they're like, this doesn't make you feel any type of way. I was like, no, it makes me feel happy for you. It gives me a reason to like keep going. You know,
I feel like it's an insecurity in men.
Yeah, it used to be for me too. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So you've been through that.
Yeah. I was insecure as hell. But I built that's part of the reason why I look the way I do now. Now I'm comfortable with it. Before I'm like, they will never know. I'm a little 4-year-old crying inside. You can't see the tears on the inside.
Yeah, it's fine now because I have this massive build.
Look at this. Look at my big old shell. But if you
I feel like I've done that. You
punch me in the face, but you could call me a doo-doo head at the wrong day, and I'm like, ah.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I've done that with being knowledgeable and being like the woman that I am on the opposite end. So instead of like building a figure and like trying to look perfect, I do it with my mind and my mindset, and you know, I work on myself that way. Yeah, the most.
I always joke around at like those networking events and stuff. I was like, I lead with my smile malautism. I'll just
You do. You 100% do.
Because people are like, what is that? That's different. Yeah. You're not talking about crypto in your business right now. You're just trying to find out who people are.
Yeah. You know? Well, that's one thing I do admire about you is you are genuine, authentic.
Yeah,
like you just don't give a fuck. And I love that.
I can't anymore. It's hard. You're always playing. It's so hard to play a character all the time, unless you need to play that character or whatever for whatever, you know, I'm jujitsu, but like when you're outside of that, you know, it's a part of you, but you can take it off. So for me, I'm like, it's just too tiring.
Yeah, you just can't keep up with that. No. And I see that a lot in Utah, especially in Salt Lake City. I see a lot of mask wearing, putting on a front, like putting on all this fluff to try to like make yourself look a certain way. And it's like,
why'd you spray me with the hose? You're like, I was trying to see if your makeup fell off too.
Yeah, right. That is something that I've like had to work through living here. And we were talking about this before we started recording, like all of the Botox and the lip fillers and all that stuff. Like I actually don't do any of that. And I don't shame women for doing it either.
If it makes it, because I ask, I'm like, hey, sometimes like I was just hung out with this girl a couple times recently. I guess technically one real time, but we're talking. And she was like, I just got, you know, my chest done. Does that bug you? I was like, does it make you feel good? Like, do you actually feel complete? Yeah. Then no.
Yeah.
Whatever. Right. You're in your 30s. Like if you feel pretty, like you slow down by the mirror when you're not wearing clothes and it's just you and you're like, hey, that's all good. Yeah. That's all I want. Yes. So, but if it's like a never ending void and it's constant and you need that external validation on a different level and that hose is always kinked, water's not coming out because of it. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's a totally different story. Yeah.
I don't have enough. I have pretty good grip strength, but that's too much baggage for me.
Yeah, that's a lot. You need to make that one thing that you just said into a real 100%. Yeah. That was gold. Yeah. That was so true. Yeah, that's a lot of baggage.
That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people don't want to be friends either right now. Like they're like, I'm like, hey, we can go on dates. We could do this. Do you mind paying for yourself at first? Like if I like it, we'll do this. And it's just like this weird.
Right. It is very, I feel that. It's a huge polarity battle everywhere. Yeah.
100%. So, all right, we'll go. Now we're circling back around. So we got into hypnotherapy. So what got you into hypnotherapy? You got tired of your own stuff, and you tired of those circles. So you took your finger and wiped it through the sand to break the circles. So what has hypnotherapy done for you and some of your clients? Like, what would you say are the big takeaways that you can think of right now?
Right. So biggest thing was financially. One of the biggest burdens that I ever carried through my whole life and past was we were really poor, had no food, had nothing. I had so many financial blocks, and I knew I was a leader. I knew I had abilities to level up myself, and I was sick of that cycle specifically. So I hired my first coach. He was a master hypnotist, and I went from $1,000 a month to making over six figures after working with him. And it was some pretty quick shifts that happened. And what he did is he taught me about my identity, my core identity, and where it came from. So he coached me on that. And then he helped me reprogram my subconscious mind in his program. Did his program, my whole life changed. Everything about me changed after that, because when you start doing subconscious work, you learn that everything reflects the subconscious. It's 95% of your entire identity and who you are in physical form, with your bank account, what you own, your relationships, and your health. It's all reflective of that. And so we spend our whole lives like reprogramming and changing that and growing through our habits. Hypnotherapy is a very fast way of doing that. It's the fastest way of causing transformation in your life, because most people focus externally on things outside of them versus the internal thing that creates the external. So it's going within instead of going outside. So that was the biggest shift that I saw in my life, but everything improved. Everything in my life improved. I was able to start healing, seeing myself, having the awareness, but it showed up financially first. Then I went into physical health, and that's kind of where I am now, and into relationships. And so the biggest shift that I see in my clients is like a high performer like you. I meet a lot of high performers like myself and like you, and people that want more out of life. They're not settling. They're growing. They care about,
and know that they have flaws and gaps.
Yes, yeah. And even if they don't know they have flaws and gaps, like part of my gift and how I help my clients is I could sit down with you and do a session, and I'll bring something to your awareness that you didn't even know was there. And you're like, holy shit, I had no idea that was blocking me. I've experienced that on the highest level for myself working with people. So that's what I do for my clients is I see the things that you can't see. You already have great awareness around a lot of things, but as you grow and level up and heal, there are things that you're not able to access. And so it requires somebody outside of you to really see that and to dig and ask the right questions. And that's what I do for my clients. So they're high performers like you. They're in a constraint in their life. They don't really realize it. They meet with me and they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. And it shows up in all areas. They think it's relationships. They think they struggle in relationships. But what I do is I help them see like, no, it's not that you struggle in relationships. It's you have a deep-seated fear that you just keep circling around because that's your comfort zone. Yeah. And so I break that mold through my coaching and hypnotherapy, and I program that into their identity. So I get really deep into the identity. And then what happens in my program is their whole life starts to magically shift before their eyes just because they're doing the subconscious work. I don't know anybody in any level that you and I follow or listen to or read their books or listen to their podcasts that have not worked with a hypnotherapist. I think it's the most underrated, undervalued gift to the planet that has been just very misunderstood for a very long time. And a lot of people don't understand it. They don't lean into it, but it is like the golden egg of all of the growth that I've done.
Yeah, I know I need that golden egg in my life too.
It is.
I'm excited.
It is a golden egg, 100%. Yeah, it's a game changer. It's a guaranteed result. It's a guaranteed outcome because it's talking to the part of you that creates everything versus me like being a fitness instructor and coming to you and being like, hey, let's change your workouts. Let's change your meals. But deep beneath the surface, they have a horrible relationship with food. So what do you have to do? You have to go in and change their identity around food. And that's what I do.
And even with that too, like even with clients and stuff over years, like even today, before this, I was like, hey, what are you telling yourself right now in your head? They're like, what? You know, it's like, hey, like I can see it on your face.
Yes.
You gotta remember it's.
And they don't see it. Yeah, they just don't see it.
I'm not negative. I was like, then You didn't hear what you just said.
You don't, dude. I'm telling you, we don't see ourselves the way other people see us, and that's something
internal
I've deeply
work
learned.
is not all duct tape and bubble gum. You're just like, this is staying together. Now look at that, MacGyver.
It just doesn't work, dude. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's people try to fast track it too. Like even people I work with, they're like, "Well, I want the solution now," and I'm like, "But that's your problem." Like that's your core wound is that you want it right now. You're not disciplined. You're not integral.
Not a crypto coin you can just invest into.
No, it doesn't work that way. And you know what's so crazy is like you meet people that are like super successful and do really well. You don't see the 15 years of them reprogramming themselves for that.
Or all the things that they've lost, like their family, this, that, and the other. A lot of really successful people. I know a couple of people that are escorts.
Yeah.
And they tell me about like meeting really successful guys and they don't even want to do anything. They just want to sit down and talk.
Yes,
and
they just want to be heard. Yeah. They get paid to just
because their
listen.
family hates them back at home and they're beyond that point of fixing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Which I have clients like that too. I have clients that hire me that are like, I just need you to listen to me once a week for an hour and a half. And I'm like, deal. And I'm going to call you out on your shit. And I'm going to bring these things to light. And I'm going to help you, be accountable for yourself. Because I'm the type of coach and I'm just the type of person, anyone in my life, if you come into my life, you are leaving better off.
100%.
I won't even allow you to leave my life without making some kind of impact on you to be a better version of yourself. It's just a natural part of who I am. Like that's my gift.
That's why I always say it's 100% guarantee. If you listen to what I'm telling you, that you're going to get something. You're going to be able to. And I don't say that I'm giving you tools. I'm helping you forge your own tools for success. You know?
Yeah. I don't want to be that person in their lives either. I don't want the codependency and
I'm
the one healing them. Like that's not what's going on.
I'll walk you to the couch, but you got to walk from the couch and you got to wobble over to the table. That's your job.
Oh yeah, I feel like we could talk for hours about like clients we've worked with, and I've done it too. I've been that way with my coach before, where he's like,
some days you need it.
Yeah.
Not every day I need to bring a different type of dirt in my pocket and kick it in your face when you're doing push-ups.
Right.
Like sometimes you read the room, you read, today that happened, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I could have approached that better.
Yes.
And like, that was me. Yeah. She broke down a little bit, her knees messed up, and we were supposed to help her back, and so she's like, oh no, this was all me. I was like, it wasn't though, because if I would have approached the way I said that to you a little differently, it wouldn't have felt so drastic. So it's like having the, being able to navigate those internal waters that people don't realize they have a whirlpool going on right now.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a lot of the work that I do. I work with a lot of men. I work with a lot of women. I don't have I've helped teenagers. I don't really have a set niche of like the person that I like to work with, but they definitely have to be aware and open-minded, and they have to want to do the work. That's like baseline of my standard of working with anybody. So,
what I would say, before we wrap this up, what are some of the top similarities you see maybe with men and women, or women and women, men and men, that you would say maybe your top 5 things that you see across the board? It maybe if it's more than 5, they could be more than 5, but just what would you say are the top things that you see across the board with some of your clients?
So top wounds, or I'll call them mind frames or mindsets or belief systems that I help them with. I have dialed it in, and I dialed it in within 6 months of working with people, because I worked with people from all walks of life, all parts of the world, men, women, children. It's all the same thing. It's literally just repeated. Biggest one is self-love, self-worth. They do not feel worthy enough, and they do not know how to love themselves. And that's like the core wound of everything. Everything outside of that is kind of created from that. But then moving from that, it's confidence. Confidence is a huge thing that people struggle with. And confidence is what creates a lot of magic in your life. When you show up in the energy of confidence, you can attract more, you're going to be able to make more connections, you're going to be able to be more successful in business. And so we go into the layer of confidence. The third thing is surrender. People do not know how to let go. They're so attached. And, you can go into attachment styles, you can go into all these things, but baseline what's going on is moving into abandonment, right? A lot of people are trying to control their reality constantly, but it's an illusion. You cannot control anything other than your own perception, internal world, but even that was programmed from your childhood. So it's an illusion of control that keeps people stuck. So I help them get out of the illusion of control, that they even have any control, which helps them let go and surrender, which is how you manifest and how you shift your energy and how you can create a new life versus the old one. And I would say the final one is fear of success. That's something I've had to work through recently because I'm shifting gears and stepping into a new layer of my own life of abundance and how I'm working with people. So fear of success is massive block for every person. Doesn't matter if you're a millionaire. I have a client that's a billionaire. There's still a layer of fear of success on some level. And what we discover is your traumas from your childhood and like the darkness that we sit in and forging that person is what's pushing these people to be this successful, right? So fear of success is probably, I see less often, but it's connected to a lot of other things. So we go into all of those individually, but those are the 5. So I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I cannot let go. I'm trying to control everything in my reality. I'm not confident, right? I need to be confident before I can do this. So it stops you. I'm afraid of how successful I'm going to be because I'm not used to any success and being able to not abandon yourself through the process. Abandonment, if I were to just sum all of this up for you of like what I've really discovered, it's abandonment. Abandonment, and we abandon ourselves. And then we create an entire reality the rest of our lives, abandoning ourselves only to learn how to stop doing that. And that's where the healing is. So that's what I've connected with everybody. I haven't met any person to this day, doesn't matter where they're at in life, that doesn't have that.
100% makes sense. You know, you're always trying to dangle that carrot, whatever that is, to feel worthy. But at the end of the day, you just got to be able to sit within yourself and give yourself a hug, right?
Well, because you were born worthy. Like
100%.
You leave with nothing. You came with nothing.
Exactly.
You're not taking anything here with you. None of it. Like we're here to live. We're here to experience life.
But then again, too, that's the thing is like, then you get into those trauma experiences, and that's when you start experiencing things like you did at a young age, and myself at a young age. You know, it's like you see, you have too much experience for that age group.
Hopefully that pendulum swings right, and like the rest of my life is what I'm putting out there is living and experiencing my life because I've gotten out of that. Think about it this way: there's a lot of people that we know that aren't out of their stuff.
100%.
They're just living in it.
100%. And then, like for me, it's like the tail end of it. Like once I was starting having those $10,000 months is when I really, and the relationships are falling apart and I couldn't figure out how to fix it or be the savior. And that's when I fell off the cliff, you know? Didn't even try to grab anything on the way down. I'm like, I'm just going to hit the ground.
I love that.
You know? So
I love that you're willing to do that. I think that's what makes you so great.
Yeah. I mean, but there was, substances and things like that over the years I've dialed back into because I didn't think I had it in myself, you know, and it's so, if I do this or I have this, then it's going to make me this, instead of just learning how to be that.
Right.
Yeah. So nowadays it's just like,
that is totally your energy. That is 100% your vibe. I love that about you.
I love that. And to our guests, like, is there anything that you like to say to them directly today?
I would say, you do not heal in isolation. Isolation is a part of your trauma response. You heal in community. You heal in connection. You heal in being seen, heard, and loved, and fully understood that that's where you heal.
Amazing. Well, Felicia, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll have you on again. We have plenty more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
If anybody, what we'll do is we'll put everything in your show notes, but feel free to give us your website, your Instagram, anything else as well. Let them know, and then how they can reach you as well. Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Heal with Felicia. Wait, is it Felicia Marie or Felicia? I think it's just Heal with Felicia. Marie. I don't know. It might just be Heal with Felicia. I think it might be Heal with Felicia. I think I'm looking at Felicia Marie on your page in my head. Yeah. So it's Heal with Felicia, and then my Facebook is Felicia Marie. There we go. You can reach me on Instagram. Just send me a DM. I that's how I like to work with people. I'm very personable, like to build a relationship working with my clients. Do you have a website? I don't have a website, but I am building one. So I'll link it on my Instagram here shortly. Awesome. So yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in. Yeah. Thank you. Once again, everybody have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.